Hey guys, what's up? Producer engineer Alex Scott here with Consordini.com. Thanks so much for checking out another one of our studio gear review videos. Today is a little bit different because we are taking a look at not necessarily a piece of gear, but a piece of software, and that is Studio One by Presonus. It is my primary DAW that I use, which a lot of people find really unusual. Most professionals use Pro Tools, and even then followed by Pro Tools, a lot of people use Logic. And there's definitely merits to both of those pieces of software, but there's also a lot of reasons to take this relative newcomer to the DAW market very, very, very seriously. It's an incredibly powerful piece of software that can do everything that Pro Tools, that Logic, Cubase, all these other programs that people love. Studio One is 1,000% as capable as any of those, sounds just as good, and I think has some really, really unique features that really set it apart. Now, we do have another video on the channel that is kind of a basic beginner's tutorial on getting started in Studio One, but I also wanted to do this video, which is just kind of a general review from my perspective and why I like it so much, and why I think everybody should be taking a look at it as a really serious contender for your primary DAW. Now, I was a Logic user for years, and I still really, really like Logic. My biggest issue with Logic was the fact that it's proprietary to Mac, and you have to run a Mac if you're going to be using Logic. And I am not a fan of Apple. I really do not like a lot of Apple's business practices. I don't want to say anything too controversial or anything like that. I'm just, for a whole lot of reasons that I won't go into because this video will be 9 hours long, I don't like Apple. I really don't. And while Logic is an amazing piece of software, and the team that created Logic I have a ton of respect for, and it's got a lot of great built-in sounds, it's very easy to use, I was just really tired of having to use a Mac in order to do what I needed to do. And as you guys know, I'm sure Apple computers are incredibly expensive, prohibitively so. And so I was needing a lot of firepower to do bigger and more complex projects with more tracks and all this kind of stuff for my clients. And it was getting to the point where I was looking at either having to spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on a top of the line Apple workstation. And then I started looking at PC, and it's like, well, I'd have to migrate away from Logic, but I can get the PC that I need, with the amount of RAM that I need and the hard drive size and blah, blah, for like $500 or $600. And so when I decided to make that move, I decided to make the move to a new DAW. I had to. And based on the recommendation of a good friend, I ended up checking out Presonus Studio One. And I was immediately blown away. It's interesting when I'm out in the world and I'm talking to other engineers and stuff, and they say, oh, well, what do you work in? Pro Tools or Logic, expecting a typical answer, quote unquote. And I say, oh, I work in Presonus Studio One. I'm always met with some really skeptical looks. And guys who are really experienced with Pro Tools and stuff, they kind of go, oh, that's Studio One. Is that even like a real, because they haven't heard it or they haven't used it, they kind of have this tendency to assume that it's a kind of a kid's program, or, not really a program that can be used for real serious production. But that is the main goal of this video, is I just want to show you guys some of the features in Studio One that really make it every bit as powerful, every bit as usable as some of the other major DAWs out there. So what I want to do is go ahead, and we're going to come over to the computer here. We're going to grab a screen capture for you guys, and I'm just going to go through one of my sessions and show you guys some of my favorite features of Studio One. Now, we are mainly going to be looking at a lot of the editing stuff. There are a whole lot of other things that I'll touch on in the end of the video that are a little bit harder to easily display in a short amount of time over a YouTube video. Things like stability and the MIDI engine and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to go too deep into that, but first I just want to show you guys with a screen capture a few general features that I love and am addicted to and just think are brilliant. And then we're going to come back to here, and I will tell you guys about some other more kind of removed stuff and reasons why I really, really like it as well. So let's go ahead and move into a session and take a look at some of the particulars in Studio One. Okay, guys, so here we have Studio One pulled up. This is a really simple little track that I did for a travel video that I'm working on, actually, about a trip that I took to Paris. But it's a really great example of a kind of simple track with not too many crazy elements going on, but something that I can just use to showcase to you guys some of my absolute favorite features of Studio One and why I think so highly of it, why I use it for so much stuff, okay? So the first thing that I love, and actually before I get started, a quick note, normally this mix window for me is on a second screen. I do have a two-screen setup, as you guys have probably seen in the background of some of my gear reviews and stuff. So this is not the normal view that I use. Normally this whole mix window is is on my second screen. I just have it set up like this so we can do an easy screen capture and I can show you guys what I'm talking about. Okay, so basically I kind of break down my workflow, and the workflow is the reason I love this program so much. But I break it down into a few basic parts. Like the mix window is kind of one section, and then our actual editing capabilities within the edit window is another, and then we have all of our controls around the outside. So I'm going to talk about them in kind of three different little segments. Now, the first thing that I love is the array of tools that you have at your disposal in Studio One to do so many different things, okay? So, and a lot of these features are not things that are like completely unique to Studio One, like no other DAW can do them. It's just that to me, Studio One is like a greatest hits of all of my favorite features from Cubase and Logic and Pro Tools and all these different DAWs. It's kind of, they took the best bits and the most useful things from all of them and put them into one spot. So in a lot of DAWs, all DAWs, you have your timeline, obviously, and you can drag loops and you can set punch points and you can set markers. However, Studio One has incorporated this arranger feature, which I think is amazing. So we can go in here and say, okay, there's my intro. Now, let's say, here's my first verse. Now, let's say, here's my chorus. And, getting ahead of myself. And then let's say, here's a bridge from here to here. And then outro, whatever. Doesn't even really matter. This arranger view, and you can of course name these custom, whatever you want to name them, and you can change the color on them, which is amazingly handy. You can pick from any of your normal track colors here. So this is amazingly handy for playing, like if I'm laying down bass or playing drums or something, I can create a chart within the song that I can read both if I'm sitting here in my control room watching the screen, or they do have an iPad app that integrates with Studio One, and this arranger also shows up on that. So when I go out to sit behind my kit, I can pull up this, my Studio One control app, and it's going to show me this arranger view, and I'm going to be able to sight read, okay, there's an intro for 10 bars and then a verse, and then I can put in stops, all this kind of stuff, and it's all totally customizable in terms of length. You can snap it to a grid. You don't have to snap it to a grid. But that's not even all. You can then independently, let's say you're a songwriter, right? And like in this circumstance, I've written this song. Let's say I want to hear what it would sound like if I took, whatever. Let's say this is like my, another chorus. Okay? What would it sound like if I put this bridge here? I wonder. We can easily demo, we can easily audition arrangement changes just like that. We can take our intro and put it, come here. We can take our intro and put it, what the heck, why not, right there. It is such an easy and fast, intuitive way to work on the arrangement of a song. And I have totally, using this feature, I've been in situations where I'm almost done mixing a track with an artist, and the artist gets a crazy harebrained idea. Hey, what if we just added a second chorus right here? And instead of having to go in and chop all my tracks and create space in the session and all this stuff, I just literally highlight one of, this, and I can just loop it with one button, D. I can loop out an extra chorus if we just want to hear what a double chorus would sound like. It's incredibly convenient and intuitive. It's great. We have all kinds of other stuff. It can auto-detect chords and tie chord arrangements to the arranger mode. We have a tempo map in case we need to change tempos. This is where you add a new track. Of course, you can look at all of your automation, all that normal stuff. But really, this arranger feature is just incredible. Now, if we zoom in here, obviously, we've got our normal kind of select your input, select what group it's in, stereo or mono track, all typical stuff, what type of track it is. And you can expand into more views and look at time stretching options and all this kind of stuff. It works very similarly to Logic in this way, in that you have this kind of info pane that you can pull up per track. But moving on from here, up here things get even more interesting. We have all the normal edit and scrub tools that you would expect, but we also have a fully comprehensive suite of audio quantization tools, okay? So if I want to take this drum loop here, let's just take this single bar of this drum loop. I can go in, set a loop point. You guys aren't going to actually hear any audio in this because I don't have it hooked up because I'm not trying to really play anything back. But if I just hit apply, boom, it is immediately quantized and time stretched my drum track to 16th notes with one button. And I can change the amount of humanization, I can change the detection threshold, all this kind of stuff. And then if I don't like it, I just go ahead and remove it. And boom, it slides it right back to normal. Now, the other amazing thing here is that if you do this to a single bar loop and then loop it out, it'll automatically apply that quantization to all of the loops. Really, really, really handy. This will work on both drums and like guitar tracks, really anything, but you have some amazing, powerful tools there. Strip silence, of course, quantize for MIDI. That's a really, really handy feature. And then we can set up macros. We've got our time base, all kind of typical stuff. But again, we have this audio quantization that works a whole lot like Beat Detective in Pro Tools, combined with some of the track selection features from Logic, combined with some arrangement features that would be more commonly seen in something like FL or Ableton. I don't actually know if any other DAW has an arrangement tool like that, okay? And then, of course, you can set markers, all that good stuff. So that's kind of our tools. Now, in terms of the actual audio editing, this is where things get really, really fun. You can actually already see I've done a few different things here, but controls for things like looping are incredibly intuitive. We just hit D and that's going to loop it out. It also intelligently loops. So if you say chop let's say you have a hand clap and it's just a single hand clap and you go through and you kind of lay it out in your timeline, kind of like I have here with these snaps. You can see on the second and fourth beat, I have these snaps. Well, a lot of DAWs will get confused when looping stuff because maybe there might be some silence or it's not lining up at the start of the bar. If I take these two and I put them here, I select them and I hit D to loop, it intelligently figures out, oh, you want these to be on 2 and 4. And so I can just sit there and loop them out. I don't have to do anything funky to tell it what I'm trying to do. The other hugely critical features that I use constantly, region gain. This is a game changer. Terrible pun. This is a game changer for me as a mixing engineer, because instead of having to sit there and automate, I can just sit there and chop something into discrete regions and then adjust the gain there, so that instead of starting with a vocal track that's really dynamic and then trying to find a one-size-fits-all compression setting and then automating it, or automating it into a compressor and setting up kind of post-effects chains and weirdness, I can level out the vocal on the region level before it hits any effects, and then the compressor is always getting the same amount of signal, and you don't even have to automate at that point, because you're automating before you're doing anything else as opposed to after. It's just a different way of looking at editing, and I absolutely love it. It's totally changed the way that I mix for the better, for sure. Now, another really amazing feature is the ability to fade on every region. You know, again, this is a feature that comes from Cubase, but is not present in Logic or Pro Tools or a lot of other DAWs. That's just amazing. If I just need to fix a quick pop or something, you know, I either have to go in and, you know, use this thing to select part of it, and it gets very, very complicated, or I have to go in and do an automation. Not so in Studio One. We can just you can even grab multiple regions and they will mirror each other, okay? We can change our fade from linear to logarithmic to exponential. Just incredibly handy feature to have at your disposal at all times. I adore it. Okay. Now, other really, really great things. It's very, very easy to go in and reverse audio. It's very easy to go in and do all kinds of more technical things. You can, detect chords and keys and merge with other audio, all the typical stuff that you would expect. But there is another feature lurking in our edit window that is truly mind-blowing. So let me take this bass track here. Now, we all know pitch correction is a really important tool in modern music, right? And one of the most popular tools for pitch correction is Melodyne. Now, Melodyne is amazingly powerful software, but it can be kind of buggy if you're using it as a plugin. Well, Studio One partnered hands-on with Melodyne to make it an integrated part of Studio One. So you just select a region, you hit Control-M, and boom, we have Melodyne built in to our software. If I can find where the parts are. There we go. And boom, just like that, we have Melodyne integrated as part. And you can, this is Melodyne Essential, which comes with Studio One with the purchase of the DAW. But you can, of course, if you have a nicer version of Melodyne, that will integrate just the same. And it saves it. You can see the Melodyne MIDI data being generated up here. You can export that to MIDI data. You can export it to a score if you want to, if you need to transcribe something real quick. It is really quite impressive. So that's another fabulous feature. Now, moving on to our last section here, which is our mixer window. Again, it's a greatest hits kind of a situation. We have some channel information here that's displayed very similarly to it is in Pro Tools. So if you need to quickly group things or do anything like you would in Pro Tools, in this window here, you can. You also get this list. There's nothing in it right now because I don't have any MIDI instruments, but we have a whole place to add virtual instruments, VSTs. Okay, here's my complete control and machine and all that stuff. And that can all be managed from here. So you can very easily and quickly see, maybe you're getting some CPU bugs and you're like, well, I don't have any plugins open. Check there. Maybe you flew in a synth or a virtual instrument to do something really quickly, and then you took it out, but you didn't actually delete the synth, so it's using CPU. You can see here, even if it's not assigned to a track or anything, it's still going to show up, so that can be very useful for troubleshooting and just generally knowing what you have going on in your session. You also have discrete output mixes for cues, input level monitoring, all lists of your external devices and easy setup for them. So these are all of my, my Model D, my Drum Brute, my ARP, my DeepMind. Those are all my external synthesizers over here to my left. So just really, really easy to use, comprehensive view of everything. Another amazing feature in the mix window is your ability to do, let's see here, where's a good example. Boom. We can actually open up some simple parameter control without the need to open the full-on plugin. If I just needed to tweak the mix really quickly on this delay, I could go over and do this and get it to where it's cozy and go fiddle with this mix knob, or I just go boop, mix, just like that. Incredibly fast, incredibly easy. I don't know why more DAWs don't do that. Logic doesn't do anything like that. I don't think Pro Tools does. And of course, you also have a cue control from here. If you've got a secondary cue mix, you can either link your cue send volume to your fader. You can see there it's editing cue, or you can unlink it if you need to do separate headphone mixes or something. Just incredibly versatile. And then finally, you have your master channel over here. And you can also, very, very nice, do inserts on the master channel pre or post fader, which is really, really, really nice. If you need to add any additional mastering processing or something like that, you can do it down here in post fader, and it's going to bring it back up to unity like you would expect in a mastering suite. And that's not even mentioning the dedicated mastering suite, which I won't go into right now, but there is a whole section of Studio One that's designed exclusively for mastering. And if you're doing an entire record, you can create all of your project sessions just like we have here, and then link them to files in a mastering session and have them automatically update. It's, again, so many things in this program. It's just game changer after game changer. As I was learning to use it, I was like, wait, and I can do what? And I can do what? It's just a blast. So needless to say, it's an incredibly powerful piece of software and not to be taken lightly. Okay, guys, so there you go. There's some kind of immediate features in Studio One that I absolutely love. Things like the region gain, being able to pull fades in on your regions, really easy crossfading, all this kind of stuff that just makes it so fast and easy to get the results that you want. MIDI integration is great, all that stuff. But some of the other things that I have learned and noticed just in kind of a grander scale, again, stuff I can't really super easily demonstrate in a short video like this one, it's incredibly stable. It's really, really reliable. You know, I've had very, very few times. I've been working in Studio One religiously and rigorously for about, I don't know, 2.5 years now, maybe 3 years, something like that. And again, when I say I've been using it rigorously, I use it every single day. It is how I make my living. And so I am not, you know, a bedroom guy who's working on beats 5 or 10 hours a week or something like that. I run the software all day, every single day, 10, 12, 14 hours at a go. You know, I might have 2 full-on recording sessions where we're multi-tracking upwards of 24 tracks and, oh, you know, hitting it over and over again, running it into the ground on, you know, a true daily full-time basis. And it's choked a few times for sure. It's, you know, no piece of software is going to be immaculate or totally perfect. But compared even to Logic and then certainly to Pro Tools, it runs like a tank. It's, you know, and I've done crazy stuff where I've, you know, accidentally a piece of MIDI gear has unplugged in the middle of tracking, stuff that might mess up a Logic session or cause it to stop recording or throw an audio, you know, a driver dropout or something like that. And Studio One is just unfazed. The audio engine is rock solid. The MIDI engine, I also have to speak really, really highly of, because as I'm sure, you know, again, if you guys have watched any of our reviews on the TC Electronics stuff or on the Icon QCon Pro X, my big control surface here, or the Softtube Console One, I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, no fewer than 13 MIDI devices, all routed totally differently. We've got MIDI timecode being synced to my drum machines. We have all of my, you know, I have an ARP Odyssey over here. I have a Behringer Model D Moog clone. I have the Behringer DeepMind. You know, I have all these synthesizers that are set up to lock the timecode and get MIDI as, you know, in a sequencing style setup from Studio One. So that's 6 devices that are all sending and receiving MIDI timecode and MIDI data. I then have my Machine Studio, Native Instruments Machine Studio, which is getting metering data and working with libraries. That's all over USB and over MIDI. We have the Complete Control S61 here, my keyboard controller behind me. That's sending and receiving everything that Complete Control needs. Then we have 24 full channels of control surface data with metering, panning, muting, soloing, all that stuff, transport, automation writing. We have the Console One, which is integrated on every single channel, on and on and on and on, and it runs perfectly. I have no errors, and I really never have. I mean, again, occasionally something will act up a little bit funky. I just restart the program and everything is fine. And that is not true of Logic. I ran not even a setup this complicated, but a few outboard synths and a simple control surface and stuff through Logic. And I was constantly having controller issues where I would have to go in and retell it what type of protocol to use. Oh no, it's a Mackie Huey or Mackie Control Universal protocol. Again, for the 9th time this week, I had to restart the program, go back in, remap my controllers. It just couldn't keep up with the level of control surface integration that I was trying to do. And Studio One just doesn't even bat an eye. I mean, everything works smoothly and flawlessly at all times. It is also the most compatible of any piece of software I've ever used with this stuff. You know, the Softtube Console One in particular, you know, in Logic, it can do a lot, but it doesn't necessarily follow your track selection and all this kind of stuff the same way that it does in Studio One. In Pro Tools, Console One is incredibly difficult to use. You know, if you set up your Pro Tools session and Console One, you know, you map Console One to it, if you go into Pro Tools and you move a track over so that your tracks are in a different order, Pro Tools is so tight with their proprietary data that it won't let Console One follow that. Console One gets confused and it doesn't know where your tracks are, and you have to go in and reassign and do all this crazy stuff. And you know, Logic is a little bit better with Console One, but still not perfect. Presonus actually worked one-on-one with Softtube, the guys who make the console one, to make sure that the system's integrated perfectly and that the console one would track everything that's going on in Studio One perfectly. All the routing options in it are the most versatile. It's kind of a greatest hits, really, of all the DAWs that I love and all the features in those DAWs that I love. Whether you're working with automation, whether you're editing, whether you're comping takes, whether you're doing buses, all this kind of stuff. I love the busing architecture in Logic, where you can create a track folder and it helps to organize your session really nicely while simultaneously creating a bus. That's all Logic does. Studio One has like 3 different ways of going about that however you want. You can create VCAs, you can create standalone track folders, you can create track folders with buses, you can create track folders with VCAs. It's so versatile, it's so powerful, and they really kind of have thought of everything. Not to mention the fact that it's got Melodyne built into it just as an integrated feature, like you're editing MIDI or something in the DAW. It's not a plugin that you have to open up a whole separate window and do all this stuff. It just slides right in as an integrated part of the system. I cannot speak highly enough of it. And I go on this big long rant every single time I talk to another engineer, and I go, yeah, I use Studio One, and they go, why? Why would you use that? That's not a real piece of software. And I'm like, actually, it's kind of better than any other DAW on the market, as far as I'm concerned. So again, I know I'm on a bit of a tear here talking about this stuff, but it just, you guys should know me pretty well at this point, having seen hopefully a number of my videos on the channel. I like things that work well. I like good workflow. I like things that are budget friendly. The fully fledged top of the line version of Studio One is $500 as compared to a lot more than that to buy Pro Tools outright. Logic is a little bit cheaper. Logic is about $200, and that's great. But, in the scope of audio software, $500 is really not that bad in terms of damage. So, it's the right price. It works incredibly well. It's incredibly robust. It's incredibly reliable. They're great with updates. There's some other incredibly cool stuff in terms of integration with mastering. There's a whole mastering suite in it called the project section, where you can tie, if you're working on a whole record, producing a whole record, you can tie each session into a final mastering session, and it'll auto update all of your mixes and all this. I mean, it's just, I could go on for hours and hours and hours about all the features that I love in it. But suffice to say, if you're dissatisfied with Logic, dissatisfied with Pro Tools, looking for an alternative option, maybe you're switching systems or operating systems or whatever, definitely take a serious look at Studio One. I think it's phenomenal. I get great results with it every day. And I can attest to the fact that, again, it's my full-time job. I am not in here 5-10 hours a week. I'm in here 50-60 hours a week, and Studio One is open 100% of the time for every single project that I work on, and never so much as a hiccup. So thank you guys, as always, for watching. Hope I haven't lost you in this extended rant. But let me know what you think down in the comments. I would love to hear what other people think about Studio One. What experiences have you had with it? Have you had good luck like I have? Have you had bad luck? Are there particular things about it that you don't like? Things about it, like me, that you love? Please join the conversation in the comments down below. We do appreciate hearing from you guys. Again, my name is Alex Scott with Consordini.com. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Appreciate you sticking with me on this one, and we will see you in the next one.